Well, not technically, it would be an Aero Precision Car 15 clone. That's the brand it is, man. Hello everyone, I'm Taylor Bambico. I'm a self-published author of young adult urban fantasy, adult thriller, and erotica, and today's video almost has nothing to do with writing whatsoever. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing my favorite variant of the AR-15 platform, and that would be the Car 15. Like with many people, I was first exposed to this particular firearm through Hollywood. Now, while there are manufacturers who are making reproductions such as Brownells, Troy Industries, and Colt, I decided, why don't I just build my own? And it turned out quite well. Now, before I go any further, let's make sure this firearm is clear. Good. Let's continue, shall we? Empty. Now, back on the topic of Hollywood, I actually first saw a firearm like this in Tremors 2 Aftershocks. And the only reason I remember that it was in Tremors 2 is because of the flash hider. Now, in the actual Car 15s, this was actually a moderator, and it actually would help reduce the decibel level just a bit. This one, however, is just hollow inside. Now, of course, with this being a Car 15, this is a 12.5-inch barrel and a 4.25-inch flash hider, which has been pinned and welded to make it compliant with the National Firearms Act of 1934. The twist rate is 1 in 7, that way I could actually use the heavier bullets, such as 62 grain, and even heavier if so desired. I mean, I could have gone with the 1 in 12 twist, but I decided if I want to be able to shoot the heavier bullets, at least I have the option to now. I mean, I don't want to be strictly limited to only 55 grain projectiles. I probably should have just said 55 grain weight bullets. I mean, I did put that in traffic to where Nicole's is also a 1 in 7 twist, that way she could also shoot the 62 grain green tipped ammunition, which she does acquire a whole can of that in traffic. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is a large weld right here. That's just to prove that it has been welded to make it compliant with the National Firearms Act of 1934. I could have gone the SBR route, but I decided just get it pinned and welded. I also wouldn't have to wait as long either. But along with Tremors 2, it does appear in The Rock, of course, those were machine guns. This is just a semi-automatic firearm, unfortunately. And of course, I can't forget Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Again, a machine gun. In fact, it was probably Terminator 2 which was a bit of an influence that this particular firearm does appear in my book, Traffic. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, shall we? Now, of course, with the year this is, it was a bit difficult to get all the parts together. Actually, there are some components on here which are incorrect for the firearm. And to be honest, you're really not going to pay attention to these inaccuracies. For instance, on the actual Car 15, the buffer tube is only a 2 position, where this one is a 6 position, which actually does have benefits. Someone who has shorter arms would be able to shoot this firearm much easier than if it was just all the way extended. Another thing that was inaccurate with my particular build is it does have a brass deflector. Probably can't see it too well in this light, but it's this little notch right here. You see it on A2 upper receivers and A4 uppers. This particular one is an E1 upper. It has the A1 rear side aperture and, of course, the brass deflector. The bolt carrier group is not phosphate, it is black nitride. However, it was actually much cheaper to buy this particular black nitride one than a phosphate one. And really, I'm not too concerned about that inaccuracy. But of course, the main difference between it is this particular lower receiver is by Aero Precision. Interesting note on that, on the upper receiver, I see the forge mark AH, which would mean Anchor Harvey, and I do remember reading on Aero's website is they use Anchor Harvey forgings. So with that in mind, this could very well be an actual Aero Precision Car 15 clone. Well, not technically, it would be an Aero Precision Car 15 clone. That's the brand it is, man. So knowing that, it's kind of cool to have an Aero Precision Car 15, knowing that probably no one else has one like this exactly anyway. One thing I think is pretty cool is how this is supposed to be an XM177E2 clone, and the actual Aero Precision designation for this model is the X15. Now, of course, to get it to somewhat match the actual Car 15s, I did have the upper and lower receiver Cerakote Sniper Gray. And overall, I'm actually very satisfied with how this carbine came out. Now, how I said a few moments ago that it was Hollywood which got me into this particular firearm, it's interesting because As I look back on it, while I was writing Traffic, this particular firearm was always in the back of my mind. Originally, there's a scene where Nicole acquires an M16A2, an actual M16A2, not a Colt Sporter 2 heavy barrel, but an actual select fire M16A2, in a very interesting manner. That was a fun scene to write as well. I mean, I always talk about the masquerade ball being one of my favorite scenes. Even I said it was my favorite scene. There's a lot of parts in that whole book I really do enjoy, now that I look back on it. I mean, I talked about some of these scenes in my 1 year later video. In fact, I'll just link that video right here for you. I mean, that particular part is still in the book, but I eventually changed it to where she uses a Car 15. Well, it's not so much a Car 15, it's an XM177E2 clone, which was semi-automatic only, just like this one. And the reason for that is it made more sense for her to use that because she'd shot that a lot more. She wasn't familiar with 3-round burst. But I'm going to come back to that probably in another book she'll be appearing in later on. And what I find interesting is how when that book takes place, it's 1993, it's right before the assault weapons ban. Nicole was considering on selling, actually not just this one, probably a few others that were in her family's collection, but she decided, well, I'll just keep them to piss off the parasites. I'm sure you can figure out what that means. But an interesting note about her using this particular firearm in the book, she only shoots it while at the range. The rest of the time where this particular carbine is present, she's merely using it as an intimidation factor where she actually relies on her 1911 to actually dispose of enemies. You know, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if the term enemy is correct. Some of them were just security guards who were, well, they were security guards for the main individual she's after. So technically they could be enemies. Well, if she didn't dispose of these guards, then technically they would interfere with her ultimate plans. And initially, how I said she was using the M16A2 for that particular scene, I switched it to the Car 15, as I said, and the reason for that is it was actually much lighter. Along with other factors, of course, though. In fact, she brought a lot of equipment with her, and it wasn't so much to help her dispose of this individual. She had a very specific reason for that, which I'm not going to spoil here. You just have to read the book. I will, however, show you a screenshot from the book of what she brought with her. Trust me, when you read the book, it'll all make sense. And how about before I end this video, why don't we just watch a little bit more footage of me shooting this firearm? So with that, I'm really glad I finally came around to building my own Car 15, and amazing how it actually was because of not only just movies I'd seen, but because it was in my book, I actually get to hold one, or at least one close to what was actually used in the book and what was used in those movies. But who knows, maybe one day I'll get to shoot an actual select fire Car 15. I'm sure there's someone out there with an actual Car 15 and a real moderator as well. So as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Click that bell icon so you're notified when I upload new content. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and have a good day. See ya!